Everything we learned from IEM Cologne 2024 right here. Okay, well, not everything. I'm mainly focusing on the playoff teams, but they're the ones we care about anyway. I've got the IEM shirt on. Nope, that's the Brazil badge. Try again. I've got the IEM shirt on to get ready for this. And also, I mean, the Brazil flag is there, okay? I don't think we're going to talk about the Brazilians too much. This is an IEM Rio shirt for what it's worth. And by the way, in case you forgot, there we go. There I am. You got the name on the back. Shout out to ESL for this one. Very cool to have. But let's get into it. And let's start with the winners. Come on now. Vitality. They're worth talking about because we learned they can win trophies. The entirety of the first half of the season, they couldn't win a trophy. They were constantly making finals, constantly making semis, but they finally broke through and won an actual trophy. And I have to give Zywoo some credit. This was a good final from him. I don't think it was great, okay? I don't think it was up there with those massive carry performances we've seen from other players in the past, but I don't think that's what he needs to do in this Vitality team. And just overall, the quality of riflers on this team was clear. Apex even had a couple of maps that were solid, and I think something worth bringing up is some of these stats. In terms of opening kills, okay, Flames in 5th place, this is throughout the entire tournament, doing a really good job, especially on these T-side openers. I think it's so clear to me that Flames is fantastic on this T-side. But most importantly, when Flames gets the entry, they win the round 87% of the time here at Cologne. That is crazy. Okay, if you're a good team, you should be winning your 5v4s maybe like 75% of the time, maybe 80% if you've had a really good tournament. That is nuts, and I think that really shows the impact Flames has on T-side. For me, he's a bit of a T-side specialist in how good he can be. And I do think that brings me on to something else in that I kind of get the feeling that with this Vitality team, this was decently based on skill, okay? I think Apex did a solid job calling, but I think the games were a little scrappy at points, and overall, I feel like here at Cologne, from what I was seeing, the skill of Vitality shone through over Na'Vi, who I think maybe actually played slightly better Counter-Strike throughout the entire event. At least for me. And that brings me on to my second point, okay? And you can't really see this in the stats, but I was trying to make these plan of attack tendency videos. You might have seen them on the broadcast. I got hired to do those. It was a lot of fun. But I will say, the one team that I found almost impossible to find tendencies for on the maps they're good at is Na'Vi. This team, when they have the time to properly prepare and lead up into a big tournament, they are so hard to predict. They are so hard to read. They have a great playbook. They have great synergy. You can sort of see it in some of the team stats, right? Like, overall, these are solid numbers all round from Na'Vi. But yeah, in general, I think just watching the games, you could tell, firstly, that Imma is finally finding his form. And that was the one thing we were waiting for on Na'Vi, is them to have a little more firepower. Because I'm going to be honest, you look down this list of players, you've got, in my opinion, players that are good in their positions, but no one that really stands out in terms of the riflers, in terms of the AWPer, right? The only player I would say is elite in their position on this team is Alexi B. And probably Blade, obviously, as coach. But in terms of the actual players who are meant to be doing the fragging, I don't think any of these guys are necessarily elite in their role. I think they can be when they're in their best form. I think they all have good qualities, don't get me wrong. JL is someone who in the past has been great on these big stage games, and in some of those moments, he has been elite in those playoff performances. Bit is someone who, on his day, can be incredible and can actually blow out almost any other rifler on the server. Even Imma recently has been good. I think Wonderful's more stable, but these players are good, maybe not great. And I think that when Na'Vi get the chance to properly prepare, it just seems like they're a team that are really good when they have that time to prep for a tournament. And that will be very interesting next year, because next year the tournaments will come thick and fast, and there's going to be a question for Na'Vi. Do you want to play all those tournaments? Do you just want to build up to the big ones? And for me, this is actually why, with Na'Vi, in my opinion, being so much better when they have that time to prep, when Blade and Alexi can work together and they can really build up to a tournament, for me, they're actually one of the teams I think has the best chance of winning the major later in the year. And if they do that and get both majors, my God, I don't think there's any argument that they're the team of the year. Don't care what they've done for the rest of the year. They've been good enough, you would have to assume. Third thing, worth mentioning is that G2 are so reliant on their individuals. Okay, these are just the playoff numbers. And by the way, Flames, again, on these opening numbers, he actually, maybe you could argue, does slightly better in the playoffs for how many opening kills he's getting. That is fantastic. But look who's at the top. Morbs. 90% success rate in the playoffs. 9 out of 10 of his openers he won. He was insane. But you know who wasn't? Nico. Second bottom in terms of opening kill rating in the playoffs. Below Carrigan. I mean, whenever you're below Carrigan, something's gone horribly wrong. All respect to Carrigan, but my guy knows he should not be above Nico on a stat like opening kill success, right? That should not be there. And so for me, again, just based on how you're watching G2 play, it's so obvious. They're just relying on their individuals. And whether that changes, we will see, but the amount of individual plays was crazy. And again, I have to point out, Morbs has been very good at slotting in. In fact, he was one of the riflers that did the best in this playoff series. Again, Monacy, just too good for... you could argue too good for any team. Like, I couldn't imagine you put a team around Monacy and he's like, yeah, these players are on my level. I don't think it's possible. But he's definitely too good for where this team is right now with how they're performing. And then Snacks, listen, I said I think he, at a minimum, should be a firepower upgrade over Hooksy. Even that has not been as clear as you would want. And that's a little scary. Okay, but having Morbs in there is a huge upgrade. So G2 currently very reliant on these solo plays, these individuals. They played well, or Nico played very well up until this point. But as soon as he falls off a little bit, or a good amount actually, in this playoff series, he was pretty bad for me in this playoff series. As soon as that happens, they can't really win. But on the other side of the coin, Mouse finally winning a playoff series against G2 quite comfortably. And it's an interesting one because in the past they have struggled in the playoffs, but the actual Counter-Strike they play in group stages, in lower pressure environments, you could argue is the best in the world. I genuinely think you could argue that. Yimfat, this guy might be the most valuable player in Counter-Strike. I know that seems crazy, but in his position, my God, okay? He's probably not as valuable as like a Monacy or a Donk or a, Zywoo, okay? I'll give you that. But in his position, I think he's the best in the world right now. This guy's insane, okay? Being able to carry from his bad positions is such a luxury for Mouse. And that pushes them into a really good position. And then you have Exertion, who his stats aren't always going to look great, but he's always playing on instinct. And you can tell that he makes a lot happen for this team. Torji has been way better lately. Shuhei is pretty good as an in-game leader. That's clear. And actually fine as a fragger as well. And so Mouse are just very well-rounded, very likable team. And they're another one where I actually think if they continue on this trajectory, they've got a real chance at that major at the end of the year. They've got a real chance. This could be a big breakthrough moment for Mouse. Finally winning a playoff series and then also playing Na'Vi so close. This one was maybe even bigger for me. Because yes, they did lose. And yes, they lost some silly rounds. But you could just see that finally it looks like Mouse are a little more comfortable. Like they're making more plays. They're looking more together on the stage. And that's something we've been waiting to see for a while. So Mouse, for me, are now genuine title contenders. Whereas in the past, I don't think you could say that because of how much they've struggled going into playoffs. They kind of remind me a bit of Heroic back when Cadian was on that roster. Because for me, they're a team that they have all the pieces. They work really well together. They don't have one clear standout player. But for whatever reason, they haven't been able to break through. And, the Heroic Cadian team, they never did. But I feel like these players have got a much better chance. When I was thinking about the Heroic Cadian team, it kind of felt like none of the players really wanted to take on responsibility other than Cadian. And that's why they looked to him as the leader so much. And it worked in the dynamic for that team. But I feel like on this team, Exertion absolutely takes on responsibility. So does Yimfat. I think so do some of the other players. And so I do think that they can break through. And especially going into future and a year from now, this roster could be incredible. Could be number one in the world. Absolutely. Final thing. Okay, and this is a sad one. the FaZe magic, okay? The FaZe magic that we've seen for so long in playoffs, where they just, even if they're playing badly, they beat these underdog teams because they've got that BS in their back pocket and they've got the experience on the stage. I think that's gone, guys. And the thing is, it's not even gone, actually. No, that's not the right way of putting it. The FaZe BS and the FaZe magic is there still, because Saw played much better than FaZe in this quarterfinal and they still nearly beat them. But even with that FaZe BS, where they play really well on the stage and they just drag you into this fight, they can't beat these underdog teams. That's the level that FaZe have fallen to. And that is sad. That is sad. Because FaZe used to be this team where when you went up against them in the playoffs, it's meant to be your reality check. It's meant to be your slap in the face. Okay, if we played you in the groups, we might lose. But if we play you in the playoffs, you're done. Because we've got Karrigan, who knows how to cool on the big stage. We've got Rain, who's been there, done that. We've got Rops, who stays cool under pressure. We've got Frozen as well. Someone who, again, also gives me vibes that he doesn't give a damn about the stage. This guy exudes confidence. And then we got Brokey, who I think is similar. He doesn't seem to care either. And yet still, I mean, just look at these fragging numbers. Like, that's all you need to look at. FaZe got outclassed by Saw. The fact they brought this so close was impressive in the first place. And okay, look, we can take away the Inferno stats and it changes slightly. But even here, okay, Saw picked Anubis, FaZe barely won it. The numbers are like pretty similar. No one's really standing out in fragging. And then on Nuke, another close map. Again, you know, somewhat similar numbers. But I think if you were just watching the match, you could kind of tell FaZe were having to pull rounds out of nowhere. And Saw actually looked solid and the better team. And I don't know what it means for Karrigan, man. Like, Karrigan, he had a couple of maps that are okay, but just when you watch him play, it feels like he's lost a step. And the problem is, if Karrigan is so bad individually that he can't make those crazy calls on the stage that rely on himself, I think he loses some of that value. Because in the past, when the game got chaotic on the stage and people were feeling the pressure, he would make a call and put himself at the spearhead of it and say, this is what we're doing. I'm taking charge. But you see him with easy kills now, man. And I also think in general, FaZe, when I watch them play, they still feel like a team who are a little too almost individual focused for me. I don't know. I've had this feeling for like a year now, maybe even more, that I don't always know if Karrigan has had the best grasp on how to use this team. I think it was way worse earlier in CS2, where it felt like a very individual focused team. Now it feels like they've got a few more strategies where they do work together, and if they go for something early, they normally have a little more assistance, but it still doesn't feel like it's elite. And with the firepower that FaZe currently have, they kind of need to have good team play as a team. And right now I think they're okay, but nothing special. And Karrigan can win some rounds and they can absolutely come through occasionally, but I'm scared, man. Like, this is the first tournament where I actually saw the signs that FaZe might not be that team anymore. And that's kind of where I see this team going. I don't know if they'll even have it in them to make playoffs in the future, because I feel like other teams are improving. Unless these players can step back up to the level that we know they're capable of, we could have some issues, because for whatever reason, it's just not clicking. There always seems to be one or two players just off the pace. And that, coupled with Karrigan being a bad fragger himself, you can't afford that. They need to all be solid. Those are what we learned. Those are the things we learned. I don't know why we've ended on such a sad note. Normally I like to be a happy, upbeat kind of guy, but yeah, I'm a bit worried about FaZe right now, man. A bit worried. Let's hope they can turn it around, and let's hope the future tournaments are as good. We'll be doing some more deep dives into the Cologne stuff, so make sure to stick around. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.